Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Objective Media. If you're new here, it's the second day of the channel being in commission. But if you're new here, what this channel is the channel where I provide unbiased news and objective facts for you, because I realize that in today's world it's very difficult to find that, so that's what I want to do on this channel. If you don't know me, I host Dylan's Daily Show. I run an Instagram page with 173,000 followers, and I just felt like I wanted to leave my opinions on my other YouTube channels and move over here and be completely unbiased and fair for you guys, because I think that's what you deserve. So we've got a number of stories today to go over. One of them is kind of like a dual story. I'm going to talk about economic growth thus far in the United States since Trump is, or in 2017, I guess, since Trump has been in office. And then we're going to talk about what would happen if we face another recession. This is going to kind of be a dual video because, number one, it's interesting to see the economic growth and everything like that under Trump. Number two, people have been talking about another recession. People are talking about the bubbles that are built up in the economy, saying it's a disaster and that some negative things are going to be happening. So I figured I'd cover what would happen if we had another recession in this video today. So we're going to start off with, obviously, the economic growth. It's slow, right? It's not growing that quickly, but the Commerce Department said Thursday that gross domestic product, which is the broadest measure of economic health, grew at an annual rate of 1.4% in the first quarter, which is better than a previous estimate of 1.2% and double the initial estimate of 7.7%. That upgrade reflects a newfound strength in consumer spending and exports. Now, again, not going to go into why this is happening because this is Objective Media. We don't get into opinions here. You're free to do so in the comments down below, but we're not getting into why this is happening. We're just going to read off of this, which comes to us from Reuters, and go from there. It's still well below Donald Trump's ambitious growth targets of the economy, which he said was going to grow at more than 3%, but he has only been president for since January, so it's been one quarter, right? So we'll see what happens moving forward. It's going to be interesting to see if he can reach that 3% growth goal that he anticipated. That's what I'm looking for down the road, to see if he can actually do that or not. Analysts expect growth to accelerate in the second quarter, fueled by solid hiring and an uptick in consumer spending. Estimates from the Atlanta Federal Reserve expect that the economy expanded at an annual pace of 2.9% during the April-June quarter, which is pretty good. Gus Faucher, who is chief economist at PNC Financial Services, so big deal, said that the slow growth rate at the start of the 2017 will prove temporary, and he expects that the economy to expand at 2.2% rate for the entire year. During the first quarter of the year, consumer spending grew at a faster pace than earlier GDP estimates suggested. Spending on housing, healthcare, and financial services, including insurance, rose much higher in the third estimate than the prior estimate. Consumer spending accounts for roughly 70% of all economic activity. So it's going to be interesting to see if Donald Trump can hit that 3% mark that he has been really trying to hit and saying he's going to hit. But right now, it does seem pretty positive. The economic growth isn't too bad. Like I said in the thing, 1.4% growth, but they were predicting a 0.7% growth before. So this is obviously good for the U.S. economy, giving confidence for people. But the interesting thing comes is what will happen if we have another depression or another recession, right? Because this is where things start to get interesting. I've got a really interesting article on this that I got from Forbes where they talk about the possibility of this happening and how we would brace for it and if it would damage people and things like that. And I kind of wanted to get into that for you guys today. I think it's something that people are interested in hearing. Let me adjust my mic into a reading position. Two well-known investors have warned over the past month that the rug was about to be pulled out from under the economy. Jim Rogers and Henry Blodgett, right? The co-founders of Business Insider. They said that the crash of a lifetime was coming, and it was coming this year. Now, this isn't the first time that people have warned about things like this. We have bubbles building up all over the economy, the higher education bubble being one of them and things like that. A lot of times when an economy is about to crash, there are a lot of people that can see it coming and that know what's going to happen. But sometimes they say things, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they say things and people listen. Sometimes people don't. So it's interesting. You don't know what's going on here. Sometimes they're just, talking about opinion. Doom and gloom pundit and emerging market fund manager Mark Faber says the U.S. stock market is coming down by 40% at least. That's huge. A severe crash will be followed by no growth in the U.S., possibly even 2 quarters of more contraction. Few are predicting it. Janet Yellen, Fed chairwoman, went out on a total limb this week and said that not only can the U.S. Handle another crisis, but she predicts that there will be more financial crisis in our lifetime. Or no more. I'm sorry. She predicts that there will be no more. Which is interesting. So she's coming on the limb saying that, but she's also saying, if there is to be, we can handle it. So that's interesting that she's saying that. You haven't heard from Janet Yellen in a while. Now, what would happen if we were to get whacked with something that led us into another great recession? Well, they cover that in this. Online financial services from Go Banking Rates recently surveyed 1,007 Americans. I don't know why they just didn't stop at 1,000. You got to do 1,007, to ask how they were prepared for another deep recession, like the one we had in 08-09. Half of the survey respondents are strapped for a crash. A downturn would ruin about 2/3 of us at this time. 61% of us do not have enough money saved to cover 6 months of living expenses, which is something that you should have. 49% of Americans are currently living paycheck to paycheck. 68% of respondents' investment strategy does not account for recession. 64% of Americans do not have a secondary source of income. Now, all experts say, or a lot of experts say, that you should have 3 sources of income. That's the best way to provide for yourself even during a recession if you have these 3 sources of income. But obviously 64% of Americans don't even have a secondary source of income. They just go to their job, they do their job, they come home, they go to bed, they get up, they go to their job, do their job, come home, go to bed. It's the same cycle. They don't have these alternate sources of income. By the way, you should also make them in separate markets if you're going to have 3 sources of income. Don't just push everything into, I work for one company and I do all don't make all of your revenue, your 3 sources come from the same source, right? So I would do, a lot of people do real estate. That's really flexible. You just put in a bunch of markets where it's like if one crashes, everything else will be fine. There are other sources of income just so you can stay on top of things. Fernando Pertini, who is a chief investment officer at Millennia Assessment Management in Panama City, thinks that the algorithms programmed by quant funds have denial built into their systems. 90% of daily trading decisions are being made by computers, he says, and they are programmed to be in denial. That's keeping the market on a tear. That builds business owner confidence and gets them to invest. Makes total sense. There are way too many moving parts to predict the future direction of the stock market. You have central bank raising rates from negative to positive, dark money leaving China and Russia, and the Middle East and going into cryptocurrencies. Swiss francs are just in parked jets or in tarmacs loaded with dollars in plastic bags. Stock market capitalism as a percentage of GDP is at its highest in history. It's around 150% of GDP, whereas the average over the last 50 years has been 77%, so that's positive. But things are going really well, which is kind of a blessing and a curse, right? Things are going really well right now, so people are very confident. But then on the flip side of things, people aren't preparing for a crash. So, because things are going so well, people aren't concerned about preparing, which is the biggest concern that comes with that. If there's going to be a crash, you have to be prepared for it. It's like prepare for the worst, but pray for the best. Same kind of thing, right? Even if things are going well, you should still be preparing for a crash. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I just wanted to share that with you guys. I thought you guys would enjoy hearing about what's going on with the economy and what would happen if there was another crash. Essentially, people would be hit hard because they would not. A lot of Americans aren't prepared for a crash like that. So if a crash were to happen, we don't really know if it's going to happen or not. If you look at the facts, you can't really tell. I could sit here and make assessments if I think it's going to happen, but I'm not going to do that here on Objective Media. But people are, some people say it could, some people say it's not going to. I'm not going to predict the direction of the stock markets on this. You can save that for Dylan's Daily Show. But what I do know, and I can say this objectively, that if a crash were to happen right now, the majority of the Americans would not be prepared for it. So if you're watching this video, you gain one thing. Make sure you prepare 3 sources of income, and you should be fine for the recession. Not should be, but you could be. It gives you a better chance of surviving the crash. So anyway, that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. See you guys later. Bye-bye.